Welcome to Unscripted. This is going to be unscripted and also reflective of, a little bit more about who I am, my background, kind of why I do what I do. I don't know if you guys can hear me all right, but I've been doing YouTube probably about a year and a half now, and it's been slow, right? I've had a couple videos take off recently, and I've gotten into much higher quality of production lately because I want to take this thing seriously. But that doesn't mean, right, I used to be a little bit more personable on my videos, a little less cinematic with my style. And I think because I transitioned to that, I don't want to lose, the personality that I had in my videos. So I think that's what this is going to supplement. It's going to be more of a blog about my life, as well as the history of my life, and then some of the deeper messages I want to paint out that I just don't have enough time to do in a short, production style video. This first one's really going to talk about why I'm doing all of this. Like, why do I keep putting out videos every day, shorts and, TikToks and stuff, and why do I make this long form content? Well, first of all, I see a major problem with the world as it is. I don't think men, again, primarily who I target, I don't think men are doing their job in terms of being able to have the discipline they need, because they don't honestly have to a lot of times. And I think a lot of men have given up on their purpose. And I think part of it is women's fault, but also that just means it's also men's fault. It goes back and forth. Communication between men and women happens between each other. So I think what's happened recently with society is men have become kind of lost or lonely or isolated because social media has played a huge part in this. And it's not necessarily the worst thing ever, because obviously it can be a tool, like if used in the right way, as you can see. But if it's used in the wrong reasons, right? I think men don't post things and get, million likes off the bat, but women are typically more known to get chased and fanboyed by a bunch of guys that are kind of desperate and lonely. That's not a woman's fault, right? But because men are more likely to pursue and do those things on social media, I think women have gotten a false sense of value, right, and boosted self-esteem. And I'm not saying that, just straight up, right? There's a lot of people that suffer with low self-esteem too, but I would say as a trend as a whole in society, women tend to get more popularity on social media with their posts and stuff than men do. And I think it's primarily because of lust, and I don't think, OnlyFans or anything like that has been productive for that in the recent history here. The increased value that women perceive in themselves, right? Because I'd say, your value to society is really only what others tell you it is. That's the best reflection channel we have. I think men feel like if they're not in that top 10%, of the cream of the crop, because, I think women's sense of value is a little bit inflated nowadays. I think that women that are, lower, typically traditional value could probably think they could go for higher and higher men. And so the cream of the crop for men are getting chased, and rightly so, right? It's not necessarily a woman's fault because they want to, mate and be with the best men out there in society or in the world. That's a primal instinct that has existed for so long. It's men's fault as well for giving into that, right? For first of all, inflating a woman's sense of self so much that they've turned around and ignored you as a person completely because they're used to getting this positive feedback all the time. And secondly, because men don't do anything to work on themselves as much as they did either, because they don't have to, right? You can get assistance, you can get support financially in this world. You don't have to work a job if you don't want. It's not as difficult as it was when it was difficult. And I think part of that is good, right? Because there's a lot of people that need help, but at the same time, it puts men in a position where it's like, if I only get, admiration, because once we have our primary needs taken care of and we have food, shelter, water, and then we have our safety and security, that's typically when we start looking for love and connection. And if they have their needs taken care of and stuff, some of them just opt into saying, well, why would I even try to find love and connection if it's only going to be given to the men that are in the top 10%? I'm competing against all these people. What are the odds I actually make it? And I think that thought goes through a lot of men's minds. Like, I might as well just settle for somebody that I can get. And so they'll just hit up any woman, right? They'll go on the dating apps and they'll just try to swipe and find anyone. And I think that all that does is make the problem worse because it gives more validation. And again, not women's fault, because it's they're the ones that are only receiving it. They can't do anything about what they get. But this cycle recently, I think social media has added to this problem so much. And so there's two ways it could be fixed. One, men could get their shit together and stop, validating everyone because they can't, they don't have any worth for themselves. And they could actually set boundaries and respect themselves a little more. Or two, this could get so bad that society completely flips and collapses in a little bit of a way, right? It falls apart until something drastic happens that puts it back in order. And I can't tell you what that's going to be. But if you look at the Middle East, right, like Afghanistan in the 70s was, fine, right? Like women were free to do whatever they wanted. It was a pretty liberal society. But then, it kind of pushed too far into the extreme where it was in comfort and everything like that. It kind of flipped to the back end. And now women are restricted. Their rights are very limited, things like that. And we've tried to obviously help that as the country we are, but it's been difficult because trying to make this big change in a country that isn't ours, and it takes a lot of resources and assistance and politics to make that happen. But with that said, I don't want to get into that political debate. I just want to reference that as an example of these are the drastic changes that can happen if we don't start taking correction as a society. And that goes into why I make the content I do primarily for men. Although I give business tips, right, and specific advice on building your brand and your social media, I very much so feel that that's one of the best ways to get out of this. Because I am one voice, and you've seen other voices, right, like Andrew Tate or David Goggins, right? And so there's these, strong men in society that are being bold about a message to try to say, hey, you need to get your shit together. You don't really have a choice. And although I don't necessarily agree with all of those people on all of their views, I will say that they are in the right direction. And I think social media needs to be rerouted because it's a core factor in this problem. And so that's why I encourage people to get on social media, to find something that they like doing, something ideally that makes a good change in the world. Like if you're a fitness coach or you do couples therapy, whatever it's going to be, and just put your service out there to make the world a little bit better. And I think anybody can really build a brand around offering a service to try to make the world a little bit better as it is. And social media, if used in the right way, can actually fix the issue it probably created from the start. People start posting, right? People start building momentum. Men start building more discipline. They start realizing that they're not the only ones out there doing hard things, and that gives them motivation to continue it when they're in a shared community. But if you ask somebody in complete comfort, like I feel like society has been shifting more and more towards, to do something difficult, their rationale is, well, if I'm not going to get respect or admiration, ideally too, from women for doing this, what's the point if I have to give so much effort to be in that small group of people, of men that actually do get the attention? What's in it for me? And so a lot of men just use that to justify their excuse to exit society, and crazy things will happen, right? You'll have active shooters, or you'll have suicide rates going up and things like that. And so it comes down to, how do we fix society? Well, we fix the people in it. And I think primarily the times have gotten generally so good because of technology and leisure that although people still struggle, in many different ways, like financially, I would say from 1920s to today, we've definitely increased a lot of the comforts that we have. And men are getting softer because of it. And if that doesn't change and we don't find a way to still hold ourselves to that standard, then who knows what's going to happen. And I think the danger of the unknown is even scarier than just taking action to fix it. But it has to be collective action. I don't like the ideology of like, well, if you're not going to fix yourself, I don't care because I am. And it's like this competitive thing. So there's a good and bad to that, right? Competition is really how men, structure their value. And we want to compete because that encourages everyone to participate, to at least figure out where they are. And if you offer for them to compete, they're at least going to probably want to try and see where they are. So that encourages, a spur of activity. But we don't want to compete in a way where we're making it so unrealistic for men to be successful by showing the Lamborghinis after 4 hours of work online, that it's just, men are like, well, I didn't make it. I gave 2 hours. What's the point of that? And so being realistic about how progress actually takes time, and breaking the norm of content you see online being fast coaching and e-commerce and all this quick money that people seem to be getting, that's not how it really is in the world. It takes a lot of time. It takes late nights doing things like this and putting in the work to actually see that result. And I think if again, primarily my audience is men. If we can find a way to come together and support each other, like in the community I started, the Ascend Collective, especially with the resources I provide in there and things like that, it'll be a good guiding star to get you traction. Men, coming together like the founding fathers or the Renaissance in a purpose, aka rebuilding our society and making a good life that we can make, that's what's going to be the saving factor of our civilization. And if we don't do something soon, who knows what could happen. All I know is I love the way the world has been, and I think it's in the right direction. It's up to us to fix. I think on future episodes of this kind of unscripted series, I'm going to be talking more about my history so you guys can actually understand why I have the worldviews. There's some things I'm not even sure I want to share yet, but things in my past that I've had to go through and struggle with that I think will give you guys some perspective. And I can't tell you when this next episode is going to come out because that's the whole point of it, but I will see you guys soon. Let me know what questions you have about my story and my past. You guys obviously don't know I'm military and I've had some struggles in different businesses in the past, but if there's anything you want me to focus on with future episodes, I'd love to know. Keep being awesome, put your best out there, and we'll see you soon.